Hi guys, and welcome to this review, which is going to be kind of like a comparison of all the dongles that I personally have as my favorites. I'm not going to focus in depth with all of them. I'm going to focus mainly on a few. One of them will be the AFUL SnowyNight. The other one will be the SiMGOT DEW 4X. The other one will be the Colorfly excuse me, the CDA M2, and the fourth one will be the Fosi SK02. This well doesn't really qualify as a dongle, more like a brick. I mean, I think obviously this is the intention here was more to be a desktop kind of thing. So obviously I'm joking, but you could kill someone with this thing. Honestly, you really could, because it's got a nice, let's say it's got a nice ergonomic shape to it that can inflict some serious hurt on whoever bugs you. Anyway, let's get into this, and hopefully I can leave you guys with kind of a better perception of dongles as in general. I apologize, but I've been having this cold for the last couple of weeks that just doesn't seem to want to let me go. Anyway, I've selected a few IEMs here. I could have selected a few others, and the reality was I actually did listen to a few others. I listened to some stuff from Canera. I listened to the BQYZ Wind. I listened to a whole lot of other IEMs, to be honest. But otherwise, if I was going to use every IEM, I was going to, drag this for hours. And the idea behind the IEMs was to, first of all, show that the dongle IEM synergy is very important. So depending on the IEM and depending on what dongle you're going to use, you will extract very different sounds. An example, for example, that didn't sound really good, but anyway, you guys understand what I'm saying. The TSMR Halo, which I got here, which is a $2,000 BA and EST IEM. This is an IEM which I consider as one of my favorite IEMs in terms of its overall sound presentation. Absolutely amazing in terms of what it can do. Okay, now this, for example, with the Cayenne RU7, it plays well. No denying that. Connected with the Yuki, connected with the SnowyNight, connected even with the Dew, it's actually quite impressive how good it is. Oh, and the CDA, actually connected with any one of these four here, which uses the 43198 from Cirrus Logic, it's actually quite impressive. Honestly, it's really impressive. It's really impressive. That doesn't mean that it doesn't play well with the rest, but the synergy that it's obtained between these four and the Halo is something else. Anyway, before I get carried away here, so I've got here the SiMGOT, the 500 LM. I've got here the T5S, which I thought was an interesting IEM to actually have here, because it hasn't been getting a lot of love, and maybe even myself, when I reviewed it, I didn't give it its necessary or its deserved credit. TinHifi T4. This is a custom one that I actually had made recently with this color scheme of blue and red. Another IEM which has gathered a lot of traction lately, which is the CKLVX D41, which is the same as the Puller 02, and obviously the Halo. I used this cable to connect any one of those dongles to my source, which was this V60 from LG. And this was to kind of try and maintain a uniformity in terms of the cable being used. Some of them have got decent cables, I'm not going to deny. I mean, the stuff from Colorfly does have this nice ribbon styled cable, which is actually quite impressive. The AFUL also has a very nice cable with it, so nothing wrong with the cable that it brings. But I just wanted to keep this uniformity. Now, these are my favorite dongles. I've got a few others. A few is an understatement. I've got a lot more dongles, but these ones are the ones that I have as my favorite, and that ultimately I end up using on a more regular basis, be it to do tests or just to listen. Cayenne RU7, Colorfly M1P, Shanling UA3, Questyle M15. I've got the new one coming, so I apologize for having this old one here. DC06 from IBasso. I've also got the new one coming. TP30 from EPZ. I've got the new ones already, and I was going to use the new ones, but I haven't given them enough listening time. Okay, so I'm going to keep it with this one, because this one is the one that I have listened to quite extensively, and the TP20, and this thing is pretty special. The Martha, the HIDIZS S9 Martha, the DEW 4X from SiMGOT, the AFUL SnowyNight, the CDA M2, the Yuki, the PENON fan, and the Shio. All of them, and let's make this perfectly clear, all of them are really good. That's it. You know, the price variance here is tremendous, but all of them are, oh sorry, and of course the SK02. All of them are very, very good. Okay, they all play very well. Now, that matching that I was talking about is important, and also the implementation of the respective decks that it has inside. I mean, we've got stuff here using the AKM 4493, the 4493. We got here the 9281, if I'm not mistaken, 9219. Let me just make sure here so I don't mislead you guys. Exactly, 9219C. We've got here 9038 Q2M on here, and on the SK2. We've got the 43198 on the DEW, on the AFUL, on the CDA, and on the Yuki, and as well on the Shio. And only here we have a 43131. The difference between the 131 and the 198 is the 131 is a combined amp deck, while the 198 is just a deck. So an external amplifier is sometimes used to obtain the best performance out of them, and that's been the case in the AFUL. That's been the case in the CDA, in the Yuki. The Yuki actually has a discrete amp section. Okay, these decks, the ESS, the AKMs, the Cirrus Logic, they all have a very peculiar or very particular kind of sound, usually to make things easier, not too complicated, independent of the ultimate, let's say, details of that implementation. Generally speaking, ESS has the brighter, more clinical, colder sound. AKM has the complete opposite, the more musical, more warmer, apparently less detailed sound. And the Cirrus Logic chips have kind of got like the in-between. They've got a good balance between musicality and technicalities, a good balance between being not over clinical. You know, they kind of like the in-between. And ultimately, although as I mentioned, I like all of these decks, and they're all these dongles, and they all are the ones that I use on a regular basis. Of course, the SK02 has been now lately, it's just been added to this group lately, but the remainder of them have been around already for a while. I have a tendency to go towards either AKM or then the Cirrus Logic. Okay, in terms of the AKM, the M1P is the one that satisfies me the most. It's marginally just more detailed than the UA3 from Shanling. I mean, the differences honestly are not, they're not. But the UA3 uses, as I said, the 4493 SEQ chip. It uses two Rycore RT6863 chips, amp chips, while the Colorfly uses again the 4493, and then it's the op amps on the amp section, which are different, which is the XR 2001. And I believe it's down to that usage of that particular amp section which dictates then the difference in sound. The sound in the Colorfly has it's just got this more musical vibe to it. The Shanling can sometimes be a little bit, I'm not going to say it's not musical, but it can be a little bit and this is not the correct word, can be a little bit harsh, especially when you start pushing it, or if if you haven't found the right synergy. For example, going back to the Halo sounds better in the Colorfly than it does on the UA3. Okay, the T4, the same situation, sounds better on the Colorfly than it does on the UAE. Is it a huge difference? No, but you can perceive it, you can pick up on it. Okay. The Cayenne is the one here that uses a 1-bit technology, and it sounds good. The only thing that sometimes gets to me is, and that's the reason why I've heard some comments of people asking why I use it with the NX7 and this and that. Well, fair enough. Using it with the NX7 is basically an amp feeding another amp, so I'm doing dual amping, I'm doing bi-amping, okay? But the reason why I use these dongles with the NX7 is it eliminates that noise floor when the thing is just working and at low volume. And for some reason, the Cayenne RU7 is actually one of the dongles that you do notice that noise. Yes, the phone's position will interfere to a certain extent, that is true, but you always notice more that noise floor as compared to the others. The only other one that you notice it as much is the fan, okay? But the reality is the fan is $70-something, $79 if I'm mistaken. This is $200 and just over $200, $229 if I'm not mistaken. So you don't expect that. And when I use it with an NX7, all of them, they go automatically quiet. That's it. And I still, by doing that, don't lose the ability of being able to differentiate between the various dongles. And why? Because the NX7, in my opinion, it's one of the hidden gems that's out there. Okay, it's a very neutral sounding amplifier. It's got plenty of power, over 1 watt of power per channel. It takes 3.5 and 4.4 connections, although they all are single-ended. There's no balance. The 4.4 is not a balanced output. And it just sounds good. It just sounds good. The battery lasts forever. It's got the gain switch here in the back, you know, so you can adjust the gain switch if you want. And it never leaves basically the middle point in terms of the gain. And it just sounds good, and I can tell the difference between all the dongles, and that's the reason why I use it, to basically eliminate any possible noises that there might be. Even the interference of the cell phone, the mobile that I'm using, connected up to it, even that interference completely goes away with the NX7. Okay, now, as I was saying, so that's the only one that's 1-bit DAC implementation. Then we got the 9281 here, we got the 9219, and then we got the 9038 and the 9038. The most clinical of all of them, to my ears at least, is the 9219. It just sounds I'm not going to say excessively clinical, but it just sounds, it's all about detail. It's plenty of power, over 300 milliwatts of power in the 4.4 output, but it just sounds way too clinical. These two, between these two, the HIDIZS and the EPZ, it's actually interesting to see how the different implementation of the DAC gives us a different sound. This sounds a little bit more laid back in the upper mids and treble, so not as detailed, which you can easily pick up with something like the T4. But it gives the bass, by contrast, a little bit extra weight. So it's a you could say it's a warmer presentation of a 9038 Q2M, while this one is a more clinical presentation of the 9038 Q2M. The issue here is that you have to be then careful with what you are hooking up to this. If you hook up, for example, the T5S, it sounds really nice, it matches nicely. However, the 500 LM, the EA 500 LM from SiMGOT, I don't think that's the better synergy. I would take the 500 LM with the TP30, for example. Okay, the 92, the M15 from Questyle, amazing, really good. very clean, very detailed, nice balance between being clinical and musical. It is the best of all the ESS ones that I've got here, even better than the Fosi, but obviously it's more expensive. The Fosi, the interesting thing about the Fosi is, first of all, it's got a very, very interesting price, $99, so nothing too excessive. Plenty of power. We got over 1 watt of power in the balanced. Okay, so loads of power there. However, when you listen to the Fosi and you compare it to, let's compare it to just these two, because these are the ones that have the 9038 Q2M as well. It's a very good DAC chip, but when you listen to the 3, this sounds, for some reason which I can't really pick up, it sounds the least detailed and the least bassy of the 3 implementation. So this will be the bassier implementation. This is the more cleaner, more clinical presentation, and this one is kind of an in-between, but it doesn't have neither a tendency of being clinical, neither a tendency of being basic. I can't really explain it. It's not that it doesn't sound good. It sounds good. It sounds fantastic. Plenty of power, like I said. I mean, I was actually quite surprised at how well it actually matched with the Halo. Surprisingly, it actually matched quite nicely. But the 500 LM, for example, connected to this, and connected to this, I would take it. This is me personally. First with the TP30, then with the SK2, then with the S9 with the Martha. Okay, that's how I would connect it up. Now, the reality is this: plenty of like I said, power. It's got a nice adjustable continuous knob. Yeah, the indicators here work kind of as well as a volume level. You can change the mode or optical USB, because it does have an optical and a USB connection possible. So a high and low gain switch. It's a nice unit. It really is. And if you have the need for a desktop that will give you good power and match reasonably well most IEMs and most headphones as well, because it's got power enough to handle headphones. Although, to be honest, I didn't really spend much time with headphones. This is a nice option to go for if you don't want anything that's too portable. Well, this is not going to be portable really. Going on now here to this section, which is a section which has all of the Cirrus Logic dongles. The fan is the least. I don't want to choose the wrong word. It's a good dongle. It's a really nice dongle. Competitive price, gain switch, everything. But it's the least polished of all of them. It's the one where things just start losing their manners, let's say, the quickest. Okay. Having said that, it's got enough power. I mean, we're talking about roughly 125 milliwatts, if I'm not mistaken, in its 4.4 output. So plenty of power. I didn't really have any issues, but it wasn't, for example, the best match with the Halo, for example, or nor with the T4. I found that it actually matched better with the D41 and as well with the SiMGOT. That's for me, to my ears, how that synergy was best obtained. The Shio, which is basically the same price, uses not the 43 131 like the fan uses the 198. It's basically the same price as well. The difference is minimal, and it's a way more polished product. Okay, in terms of its power output, it's about 150 milliwatts in its 4.4 output. As well, you've got a high and low gain switch by pressing the buttons of the volume up down at the same time, and it just sounds substantially better than the fan, considering that they have got the same price. You'll straight away tell the difference. one of the things that straight away is very noticeable is that when they powering it up and powering it down, you get a few little pops and stuff. This is very quiet, no pops powering up, no pops powering it down if you still have the headphone, the earphones connected. So nice that circuitry, that part of the circuitry has been well implemented, and it sounds really good. It was one of my favorite dongles for a long time. My favorite, actually, using the Cirrus Logic for a long time. Until the Yuki came along, this was my favorite, to be honest. Then we have the Yuki, which, like I said, it's got a discrete amp section. By itself, it sounds amazing. The only little thing here that sometimes gets to me is that you can pick up again on that little interference. So I like using it as well through the NX7, but it's got plenty power. The Yuki, there's nothing here. The 160 milliwatts that it does put out in its balanced output, in my opinion, or 160 milliwatts with a lot for the lack of a better word, with a lot of balls, let's put it that way. Okay, so it's got more than enough guts with those 160 milliwatts to power all of these IEMs very nicely. The synergy that I obtained with the Yuki, well, actually the Yuki with any one of these IEMs sounded fantastic. But the two standouts were the Halo and the D41, the CKLVX. Those were the two standouts with the Yuki. The T4 sounded amazing, the T5S as well, the EA500 LM as well, but these two were the standouts. Now, that leaves us then with these three, which were also the three that I was going to talk a little bit more about, as well as the SK02. And the difference, let me put it to you this way: the difference between the CDA, the M2, and the Yuki, to my ears, is very minimal, very minimal. The CDA also does have a nice little feature here, which is the fact that it's got a little LCD screen where you can go through the menu and select what you want, the high and low gain. You can select the various the different offerings that it has, and it also uses the XR 2001 op amps in the amp section, and I think again those amps being used here are one of the reasons why it sounds so good. 250 milliwatts of power on the 4.4 output, loads and loads of power. It's got more than enough power. Again, I only use it with the NX7 just for that sake of eliminating any possible noise floor interference or whatever you want to call it. Okay, but it's got more than enough power to handle at least these IEMs here with ease. The only IEMs, and actually I didn't put here planar, but I should have actually come to think of it, I should have added a planar here, even if it was just maybe an S12 or something along those lines. The planars, contrary to what some people might say, I found that these dongles run out of steam to a certain extent. Something like the P1 Max, for example, I can take this basically to its maximum, while with the NX7 I don't, and I prefer to always have a lot more power and not utilize it, and by that then maybe having a bigger margin of operation in terms of not running into any problems of clipping or anything of the sort, than to be more limited in that power output and in the transient, and you know, when because I like listening loud, and during a transient response I run the amp into clipping, and basically clipping is what destroys speakers and you know, IEMs and headphones and all that. My apologies. So in terms of its power output, plenty power there, and it's the one that I think assimilates itself excuse me, the most to the Yuki. The SnowyNight and the Dew are not far behind, and the reality is this, and let's be honest here. These four, they are very, very close in their sound. The differences here are price: $159, $169, $100, and $79, if I'm not mistaken. sorry, $109.79. So 79, 109, 169, and 159. These are the differences here that actually, let me run that by you again. I'm sorry, 79, 109, 159, 169. So the Yuki is the most expensive, and then it gradually goes down. And although this one is the one that assimilates itself the most in terms of overall sound to the Yuki, the difference of the SnowyNight to the Yuki, and I'm saying the Yuki because the Yuki is kind of my reference, not because it's the most expensive. It could actually not be the most expensive. It's just the one that for me sounds the best. The SnowyNight, what it loses out to the Yuki is more than compensated by the difference in price. Okay, so the $60 of difference that exists here are more than justifiable if you don't want to do this jump. Let's put it that way. So if you want to keep yourself, if your budget is $100, you won't regret it, because I'm sure that the IEMs that you're going to choose are going to match up with it very nicely. All of these IEMs, like I said earlier, they worked beautifully with any one of these. Okay, the DEW, the difference of the DEW to the SnowyNight and the CDA and the Yuki is the DEW, and it has to obviously with its implementation, it's a little bit more laid back in its upper frequencies. Its upper mids and treble are a little bit more relaxed. So when you connect something like the T4 and or the Halo, you notice that the detail, which is still very impressive, has just come down a notch. Okay, it doesn't, in my opinion, detract from its ability to reproduce what I like listening to properly, or it doesn't mess it up in any way in terms of no, I'm not going to get all the twinklies and the sparklies that I still want. No, none of that. And maybe for some of you which still have your hearing capabilities at their fullest, you might not even think that there's a difference. Okay, now I do notice a difference, a slight difference in terms of that upper mids and treble and the twinklies and sparklies between the DEW and the other three. But again, the IEM that is hooked up will be very much a factor. If I've got something like the D41 or if I've got the EA, honestly, I was very hard pressed to tell the difference between any one of the four. Okay, I was able to tell the difference with the Halo. I was able to tell the difference with the T4. So with BAs, I was able to tell the difference. And actually, on that point, I would say that the DEW kind of helped, especially the T4, in sounding a little bit less BA-ish. Okay, the T4 is an amazing IEM, amazing, but depending on the song, you can pick up on that BA timbre. Okay, and the DEW was the one that actually did that camouflaging the best of the four. Okay, the SnowyNight, excuse me, by contrast, has got a little bit more detail up top. It gives me the perception of having a bigger of being capable of giving me a bigger soundstage, especially with something like the T4, the Halo, and the LM. That was quite that was noticeable. I could pick up on that. The rest was very much the same thing. The CDA M2 and the Yuki, like I say, they very, very equal. Going just back a second to that issue of the matching, I would say that the DEW with the T5 is probably the least of these four, is the least perfect match, because this has already got a certain roll off above 8K, let's put it that way. So coupled to that warmer nature here, it might not help but bring out that last bit of detail. Okay, and you might find it a little bit too close down. But as I mentioned already, with the T4 and the Halo, for example, it matched perfectly in LM 500 LM, the same situation. So there you have it, guys. I mean, I know this is not an easy review, if you want to call it that way, to make, because as I mentioned in the beginning, any one of these dongles is a decent dongle. They do their job properly. Obviously the disparity of price here is huge, like I mentioned before, but there are basically, let's put, three categories up to about $80, up to about $100, and then $150 and above. And if I have to consider those price points, okay, there are obviously the ones that I think are the ones that make the most sense. Up to let's say $80 price point, I would say the Dew 4X is my first selection. In second place, I would probably put the CDA M1P and the Shio, okay, and then in third the TP30. The difference between the Dew and these two, not so big. The difference between this and that in terms of the overall sound that I personally like, I just like the Dew more, okay. The difference between the TP30 and these two, the M1P and the Shio, honestly there wasn't a real big difference. It was down to just a sense of musicality. So if I was, for example, if I had something which is connected up to these four that was a little bit harder to drive, like the planars, I would probably take the TP30. If I had these IEMs, yeah, in particular connected up, it was more times that I was more happy with the sound I was getting from them connected up to the Colorfly and to the Shio than I was with the TP30, because the TP30 is just a little bit more, because of its extra amount of power that it has, it's a little bit more unpolished by comparison, okay. I know these are harsh words, and I want you guys to take that into consideration. So in that lower price bracket, I think these are my selections. Like I said, the Dew is the first. Up to $100, definitely the SnowyNight, no contest. SnowyNight, then the Martha, and then the the UA3 from Shanling, which is actually a surprise because of the fact that it's got the AKM, which I like so much. Okay, but unquestionably the SnowyNight is the better one. In the up or above $150, or the Cayenne, the M15, the Yuki, and the CDA. Well, however it might seem as a surprise to a lot of you, the Yuki is my favorite. It's the one that I end up going to more often. And it's actually something that surprised me as well to a certain extent, because I used to be, and I am still a big fan of the Cayenne. I really like the Cayenne. I really do appreciate the sound that the Cayenne has. But at one point I started listening to the Yuki with those IEMs that I was usually listening to more. It wasn't this selection in particular, and I started appreciating a certain magic that the Yuki has. And the Yuki gives me that balance of technicalities and musicality that I sometimes lack in the M15, and sometimes on the Cayenne just sounds a little bit lifeless as by comparison. This, I find the Cayenne to be more musical than the M15, not by much, but more musical than the M15, but it sometimes gets lost in that musicality and becomes just a little bit boring. Is not perhaps the best word, but it sounds just okay, all right. And this has always got a certain amount of engagement that is very satisfying, all right. Finally, and so that you guys don't think I was forgetting about here, the Fosi, the SK2, the SK02 to be correct. How does it then, let's put it this way, how does it then fare against, these are the three top contenders, how does the Fosi compare to these three? For me personally, it doesn't beat these three. It beats them, yes, in terms of outright power, unquestionably. In terms of outright power, it's the most powerful one, no doubt about it. But in terms of its sound, of its musicality, of its the technicalities, which again, be aware that technicalities and the timbre and the tonality will be very much dependent on the IEMs that's connected. It's not a match for these three. Compared to the rest of them, I would say that this, like I said, it's got that issue there which I can't really understand what it lacks there at times compared to the TP30 and to the Martha. But if I consider its versatility and the power that it has, those are two very strong points that it's got going for it. So I would probably say that maybe I would choose a TP30, then the SK2, then the Martha ultimately. Ultimately probably that would be how I would go. Compared to the fan, it's better than the fan. Compared to the Shio, no, the Shio is a better sounding dongle. Compared to the Colorfly as well, the same situation. The Questyle and the Cayenne as well, the same situation. I mean, look, it's got its place. Okay, this has got its place, and I think it's very much like all of them. But this one very much will shine depending on what you connect up to it. It's got an ESS DAC amp. DAC chip, sorry. So if you're going to connect something which is maybe by nature already too bright, maybe not the best match. So if you connect it up to something a little bit warmer sounding, yes. And the reality is, for example, with the T5S, although I was, like I mentioned, impressed with the sound on the Halo with it, it didn't. I guess because of that issue that I mentioned of it not being as bright and not as bassy, I don't know, as the other two implementations of the 9038 Q2M. With the Halo, it sounded surprisingly good. But out of all of these IEMs, the one that sounded the best actually with the SK2 was the T5S. The T5S was the one that for me sounded the best. Okay, the D41 and the LM were the second ones, and then the T4. So it's got its place. I like it because of the power. Let's make that perfectly clear there. I like it because of the power. That's it. And that's it, guys. I mean, I hope I was able to clarify or help out you guys with some choices. Keep in mind, like I mentioned, that the important thing here is your choice of IEMs will be very much an influential factor in how the outcome of the sound will be. If you have a brighter sounding IEM, I would always choose a warmer sounding dongle. So something like with the AKM, like the Colorfly, or maybe then one of these implementations of the Cirrus Logic, especially the Dew. If I've got a warmer sounding IEM, then any one of these implementations of the ESS would be good. It's all down to how much money you have to spend. And yeah, that's basically it. I mean, guys, I think the Cirrus Logics are always for me at least a nice compromise. They do basically everything quite well. So I think they are ultimately the ones that are going to be the most versatile in whatever IEMs you connect up to them. Whatever IEMs you select, brighter, normal, neutral, or bass. Yeah, I think those ones are the ones that you will more easily find that synergy. But that's my opinion. With the selection of IEMs that I have and with the music that I like listening to. All right. Anyway, guys, I've dragged this on forever. It's been a long review. I hope you guys have been helped out enough, and that's it. Any questions you might have, please feel free to ask me. All right, take care now. Bye bye.